Welcome to another episode of Tank Talks, your personal think tank for all things startups and venture capital. I'm your host, Matt Cohen, founder and managing partner at Ripple Ventures. On today's show, we welcome co-founder and CEO of Flexspace, Eyal Lasker, to discuss the future of flexible workspaces. Eyal shares his story starting out in the Israeli Defense Force as a product manager on the cybersecurity team, and how his experience working in the army helped him kickstart a career in product management. Eyal discusses his time working at some of the world's fastest growing tech companies like Klarna, Uber, and WeWork, and how it shaped his understanding on how to run a successful product team at scale. But it was his time at WeWork that made Eyal realize the gaps in flexible workspaces and why he decided to launch Flexspace in 2020 as an asset-light marketplace and booking platform to help companies and landlords take advantage of unused workspaces. Finally, Eyal shares his views on the current markets and how Flexspace was able to attract amazing investors like M13 to help build out his vision for flexible workspaces in the future. But before we get started today, as our listeners probably know by now, the team at Ripple is always focused on helping our founders and portfolio companies find the best partners to work with. And when it comes to corporate finance and cash management, there's nobody we recommend more than the team at Jeeves. At Ripple, we manage all our fund expenses and employee credit cards using Jeeves. The team at Jeeves helped me get my team set up with physical and virtual cards in days. I was able to allow my teammates to expense items in multiple currencies, allowing them to pay for anything, anywhere, at any time. We weren't asked for any personal guarantees or to pay any setup or monthly SaaS fees. Not only does Jeeves save us time, but they also give us up to 3% cash back on our purchases, including expenses like Google, Facebook, or AWS every month. The best part is Jeeves puts up the cash and you settle once every 30 days in any currency you want, unlike some other corporate card companies that make you prepay every month. Listeners of Tank Talks can get set up today with a demo of Jeeves and take advantage of our Tank Talks special with a $250 sign-up bonus and skip the waitlist that already has thousands of companies waiting on it by visiting tryjeeves.com/Tank Talks. Use referral code Tank Talks to get set up today. Now let's jump into the tank for this week's episode with Eyal Lasker, CEO of Flexspace. Thanks for joining us in the tank today, Eyal.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Excited to be here.
You know, Eyal, your journey from Israel and the Israeli Defense Force, or the IDF, and then into the hedge fund world before leaping into the tech world as a product leader is just too impressive not to dive into right away. So to kick things off, I would love it if you can give our audience a brief background on your personal journey and how you ended up working with startups and technology.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I guess I was always curious about the world, and this is why I went to study physics and astronomy. It actually had a huge impact on me to realize that the world as we know it is very limited to our physiological limitations as humans living on planet Earth. But, as a young man, I also needed to make a living. So I came across the hedge fund world, which was looking for quant people to apply computational models on financial assets. And I guess I got hooked on the high intensity nature of the job, the competitiveness, and learned valuable lessons about risk and reward. What's also interesting there was that I had a lot of flexibility. I didn't realize that before jumping on this podcast, but I think that was really the early seeds for Flexspace. I mean, at the time, no one cared if we are at the office or not. We could work from whenever we wanted, as long as we delivered, the results at the end of the month. And I think that really shaped my view on work, the fact that work can be done anywhere, that you can be productive as long as you stay committed. And after 5 years there at that hedge fund, I just decided to make a change in my career, pursue something that has more purpose and mission. And eventually kind of took some time off, went to San Francisco, met incredible people, got a glimpse into the tech world, and immediately knew that I want to be part of this community of builders.
Well, I mean, you kind of glossed over the first part of your journey, after going to school and everything. A few months ago, we had a guest on the show who was also in the IDF, Lior Susan from Eclipse Ventures. And we asked him how his time in the IDF impacted his life's journey and the lessons he learned from being in the IDF, and how he ended up in the travel space and ended up in the tech world later on. So I guess I have to pose the same question to you as well. Working in the cybersecurity space with the IDF, how did that sort of dictate where you ended up?
Yeah, well, IDF definitely gives you the opportunity as a young person to build impactful products at scale. And I think, I learned the traits of being a product manager without really knowing or calling it product management at the time. Going through that journey in IDF and working on mission critical products, working with very impactful stakeholders, and having a lot of responsibility at a very young age.
Right. So you weren't actually the technical side because you didn't have a computer science or math background. You were more on the product management side.
Yeah, I was at the time. I didn't really know, like, I didn't realize that this is product management, but essentially, yes, that was exactly my responsibility to tackle big problems, to think about solutions to deliver it in a timely manner and communicate across a very big organization about the change and impact that we're doing.
Interesting. Same thing we hear kind of from Leo or Susan was that you were dealing with real life and death situations, so every decision you made had to be properly orchestrated and thought out, clearly. Instead of when you were trying to just add a new button to a product on the Uber app, let's say when you were a product manager there. So you really had the first thrown into battle kind of product management roadmap thrown in front of you, I guess.
Mission critical, I would say. Yeah, that was what we were working on.
Yeah, I know. And after your time working in the hedge fund space in a statistical arbitrage world, you actually started your first company. I believe it's called Glimpse in 2012 as the co-founder. What was that experience like jumping from the hedge fund world into the tech world and running a video startup?
Yeah, so it was 2010 when I decided that I want to shift from the financial industry into tech. So, I was like trading the markets during the great financial crisis of '08, all through the recovery of '09 and 2010. I guess I wanted to take more control over my life and not being dependent on like exotic derivatives and credit rating agencies. So I really immersed myself because I had to figure out how I'm going to do that shift, right? So I immersed myself in the tech community and really kind of try to be part of all the meetups and the discussions and really become part of that community. Try different things. One of them was Glimpse. That was a similar concept to Vine. And I think the concept and the ideation were good, but we failed at the execution, and that was my biggest lesson there.
What were some of the greatest challenges you faced when building Glimpse? Besides everything that every other first time founder startup faces that you still carry with you today?
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that I realized how important execution is, and bringing on the right people that are domain experts at their field. So I think as a young entrepreneur or entrepreneurs, we were just like trying to do everything. And instead of that, we should have been more focused on team building and just executing.
Yeah, we hear this time and time again. It's like, a founder tries to be the builder, the fundraiser, the sales leader, all three, in one, which never has existed before. And so why would it exist at your world? And so that's why they try to go out and hire, 10X engineers or 10X salespeople. But obviously it's a struggle when you don't have the resources to pay those people. But if you do find a way to cut yourself back and give those, excellent leaders a chance to perform, they'll probably do a much, much better job than you would trying to figure it out on the go, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I really believe in team building. The different ways that you can build your team. It can be a team of founders. It can be the founding team. There are many ways to skin the cat, but at the end of the day, the first unit of innovation is the core team, and this is something that I put a lot of emphasis on throughout my career, and also obviously here at Flexspace.
Yeah, and then after that, you moved to the Valley, and you ended up, jumping around the product world for a couple of years in some amazing companies, some of the world's fastest growing tech companies, including Klarna, Uber, and then WeWork for several years. So, how did you make your way into those product roles at these amazing companies? And what were some of the best lessons you experienced during your time at all these companies that you still carry with you today?
So I had the opportunity to join Klarna's product team due to my experience in the financial world, combined with experience as a kind of early stage venture focused on the consumer side. So both of them blended well for my role at Klarna to build the consumer domain for credit products. And that was my entry point into the first kind of big tech company, global company at the hyper growth at the hyper growth stage. From there, Uber, WeWork, I was just lucky to be in these three amazing companies, really at their hyper growth stages, and learn a lot about what it means to be a founder, a leader, both in good and bad times, right? I think I experienced like the highs and lows of some of the like most interesting companies that like tech world in the last decade probably, and not everything was always smooth and fun, but definitely we had that too. And I think in terms of learnings, focus is a huge. It's just like so important for a startup just to be focused on the problem that you are going to solve, deciding what to work on and what not to work on. Like saying no is also a huge part of being successful. Listen a lot, like listen to the customer, and also be attentive to data and be attentive to qualitative feedback. So all of those three, I think, focus, prioritization, being very attentive to feedback, and being data driven are the things that I learned a lot in all of those three companies.
Yeah, those are all super important things, and a lot of things I think first-time product managers should definitely realize, because they're the conduit between sales and go-to-market teams and the engineering teams and what they want to focus on and build. And you're trying to take all the different parts of the puzzle of what people say they need in order to close deals, but what the engineering team is saying is a priority to figure out on the DevOps or tech stack side, or figure out the tech debt first, are all trying to be figured out through you. And so you have to listen a lot and also prioritize and look at the data. But I also wonder, your time working in the hedge fund space, just like my time, during the crisis when I was living in New York, you went through an emotional roller coaster every single day. But with Uber and WeWork, it was more of an elongated emotional journey that had like kind of a slower buildup over time. How did your time in the hedge fund space, dealing with so much emotions every single day, help you deal with some of the turbulence that you saw during your time at Uber and WeWork?
That's a great point. When I first kind of transitioned from the hedge fund, from like the trading from the trading floor into like big tech companies, the tech is intensive and stressful, but also you don't get that daily. You are not being measured on a day by day basis. So in a way, I think I was already I learned how to deal with stress and emotions, and to manage myself through good and bad times, and that really helped me kind of go through those motions that we had to face in Klarna, sorry, in Uber and WeWork, obviously, through times that things weren't smooth.
Yeah, I mean, for me as well, the same thing is like I didn't realize how emotionally I was attached to so many things every day working, on Wall Street. And then moving into the tech world, you realize a lot of people don't have those experiences of day-to-day emotional swings with the markets. And so you have to learn how to balance the two of them, especially with people who come from a computer science or, marketing background or something like that. So I share that emotional journey roller coaster with you as well. Now, in your final years at WeWork, you ended up leading their growth platform, by innovating some new amazing flexible memberships and buy-ups and bundles and retention plans across so many different enterprises globally. And I believe you also helped launch their Japan Passport program, which was described as their product offering for enterprise clients to optimize desk with their partnership with SoftBank. So that must have been really cool. I assume you began incubating the idea for your next venture, Flexspace, during this time. And if so, how did you eventually decide to take that leap, especially during the pandemic?
So I spent a lot of cycles thinking about the future of work. And when the pandemic hit, we just felt it's a great opportunity to rethink everything, rethink how we will come back, if at all. But one thing that, just putting things into perspective, the work environment always evolved to fit our needs, right? From factory layout to cubicles, open spaces. So the fact that our work environment changes is not new. Remote work, right? It's just another form of work environment. And that is too not new, right? There were like amazing companies that were successful being remote, GitLab and others. It was simply a niche up until COVID. And then when you combine that with advanced technologies, better communications and collaboration tools, low cost of cloud storage, environmental awareness, and people that are looking for more flexibility and work-life balance, and all of that together with a once-in-a-century pandemic, you kind of really get the perfect storm to rethink how we work. So we kind of identified that we are in this very unique time, and the opportunity that will emerge will be huge. So we decided that we wanna be part of that and help kind of rethink, rebuild the way we work.
Flexible workspace has been around for a while, and it's something that we've seen kind of come and go in different type of iterations over the last couple decades. But let's just jump into today's topic, which is the future of flexible workspace and why they are still so important to the tech ecosystem. Obviously, like I said, during the last decade, there were a lot of flex workspaces that have come and gone, some more convenient than others, but it's now become a bit more strategic as a business decision for a lot of companies to be able to offer this as people transition from this like remote to hybrid to fully in office. So can you explain how FlexSpace exactly works and why you think now is the right time to double down on flexible workspaces?
So FlexSpace connects employers and employees with flexible workspaces on demand in real time. This is the core of what we are doing. As an employer, you set a monthly budget, and your employees get access to a network of spaces available to book directly from their Google Calendar. No, they don't need to send an expense report. There's no reimbursement flows. We just simply removed all the frictions from all sides, the employer, the employee, and the space operator, right? So I think now is really the time to really, we are in this new normal. The world has changed. Now it's the time to talk with your employees, listen to what they have to say, what they need. And workspace flexibility really brings a sense of control, more work-life balance. And I think this is something we all need in today's environment.
Right. So, I mean, like I said, there's so many companies that have tried this before, with from Breather to your old employer, WeWork, and the even OGs of the space with Regis. It's been a grind for so many years. So, what is it that makes your platform, besides the Google Calendar integration, so much more exciting than what the last, few decades of players have tried to come before you?
We are an asset-light company, right? As opposed to Breather or WeWork or Regis, right? We don't own, lease, or operate any of the spaces, right? Our sole purpose and mission is to build the fastest and most efficient way for employers and employees to discover, book, and manage flexible workspaces on demand in real time. And that's our DNA, that's our core competency, and that's where I believe we excel.
So would you say that you need to have like two sides of the market in a way to be able to make flex space valuable, though, right? There needs to be space available that, landlords or, owners of units have been able to put on the platform, correct?
That is very correct, right? It's a two-sided marketplace. We, on the one hand, work with companies, employers and employees. On the other side of the marketplace, we connect with FlexSpace operators. We integrate directly with their inventory management system. We help them find those pockets of unused space and monetize on their perishable inventory.
And would you help adjust the use of the space? Tell them what would be more suited from a aesthetic point of view or an organizational structural point of view before the space is put onto the marketplace?
Funny you asked that because I had this call just 2 days ago about an operator opening a space in a new location, and they actually asked us if we can provide data into what is like the most common way people use space and how many office, like what percent they should dedicate to traditional office spaces versus communal area and meeting rooms. So as we scale, and because we work with a large network of operators in many locations, that gives us unique insights into data and really help inform how the future of real estate should be designed.
That's interesting. I know this problem personally because we ran an incubator space for our portfolio companies before the pandemic called The Tank, which is how the Tank Talk podcast got started. And we had to take on 5,000 square feet. I had to build all 50 desks and chairs myself. And what we realized was there was a huge demand for private space as well as open concept space. And so we had to go out and build custom phone booths. We had to get set up for booking room space because there was people that were just lingering on and taking advantage of a massive boardroom with only one person in it. And so there is probably a need for a lot of that data to help landlords and builders optimize spaces more for flexible space. So I'm very curious to see how that data comes out. So please do share it publicly if you do have any of it available.
Yeah, and also what I see now is that those operators are starting to move into a flexible build out. So you can actually adjust the walls, right? Shift the walls, move the walls, reconstruct the layout of the space easily, right? And based on the demand that is coming in.
We had that actually. Our building was quite old in Toronto, but it did have one of those soundproof accordion doors that would close and expand a boardroom to be massive and fit, 40 people, and then open and it would shut it off and you would have 20 on each side. So I definitely see a demand for that. But let's talk about the transition from fully remote into that hybrid world that everyone's kind of struggling with right now. And I think we can all agree that hybrid work is something that people really care about, especially the next generation of employees. But employers are really struggling here. I mean, recently outspoken CEOs like Elon Musk sent a memo to managers saying all employees must return to the office or they must resign. Now, obviously, when you're in the physical world and the hardware building space, you need to have people in the office. But some founders are still not convinced that it makes sense to even commit to an expensive multi-year lease for office space again. I'm not willing to do that for our team. So, how do you think employers should think about flexible workspace when they're trying to bridge the gap here for employees?
So first, I think it's different companies have different cultures, and I don't think there's like one size fits all. It's a lot about the culture that you build for your company. It's a lot about talking with your employees and understanding the needs. I will say that for employers, FlexSpace provides opportunity to gather all this like valuable data and insights into where and how their employees are opting into work, at what capacity, what frequency, how often do they see individual using the space versus collaborative needs for in-person meetings. And then with that data, right, you can start understand and learn what should be your future office strategy without the commitment, right, of those long-term leases and expensive office spaces.
Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of a push-pull strategy. You don't have to like pull them all the way back in, but you also don't need to push them all the way out into the remote world fully. By using a system like Flexspace, I assume it kind of nudges them to consider this option, and then the data starts to compound on itself for them to understand which direction they should go with, whether or not they need to sign a lease, in a year or not. Correct?
Exactly, and I started with I truly believe that the team is the first unit of innovation, and I truly believe in person. I think some things cannot be replaced, and meeting people and spending time at the same space in person sparked innovation, creativity, team building. I'm just saying that not necessarily you need that every day, and the way that we think about the future is really that whenever you want to opt into in-person experience, you can, and you can do it easily wherever it makes sense for you in the environment that sparks your that really fits your need and sparks your creativity for that task without having to it's kind of moving from like the DVD to Netflix, right? So that's how we think about it.
Yeah, I'm very aligned with that methodology of working as well, especially for our teams, as they're already so spread out. And I don't think you're going to be able to get everyone 100% back in the office going forward, no matter what you're trying to really do, unless it's in the hardware Tesla space. I hear that. Now, you guys got started in the pandemic, and I read that in Q1 of 2022, Flexspace bookings more than doubled. And today, your team partners with operators like WeWork, Mindspace, The Yard, Nomad Works, and Workwise. So, can you explain why companies like WeWork and Mindspace need a platform like yours to scale, and why they just can't do it themselves?
So we help them monetize their perishable inventory with very low operational costs. So they get a new high margin revenue stream with the opportunity also to convert those on demand users into longer term rentals. So no, it's a win win. And as I mentioned, right, they are very good at space building and design and operating and creating that communities. We are there to support more from like the tech layer of how you connect non-members, right? People with on-demand needs with underutilized space.
Now, would you say that you could see this solution also applying to maybe the retail landscape where so many stores went out of business during the pandemic? There's a lot of leases sitting open and someone wants to maybe rent for a pop-up shop or some retail experience over a couple of weeks or a month? Or is it purely focused on the company business world for commercial?
So what we are starting seeing from our data is where people are using space, right? And I think if traditionally we work in alike mostly focused on opening those spaces in the financial downtown financial districts. Now we're seeing demand coming actually from more like the outer cities, the suburbs, right? People want to work closer to where they live. And I think so that there's definitely an opportunity there to convert unused like retail space into a workspace or communal workspace models.
Yeah, I mean, your team must be collecting some really interesting data points. So let's double click on that for a sec. When I did some research on you guys, you had some really interesting data points around the amount of days that collaborative workspaces are being booked in advance, which I believe is 4.5 days in advance. With nearly 31% of Flexspace bookings occurring midweek. And obviously, Wednesdays, hump day, is the most popular day of the week for people from a hybrid remote workers to want to hold in-person meetings so they can enjoy those long wraparound weekends. And Tuesdays are the preferred day of the week for solo work days, with nearly 70% of Flexspace single office bookings taking place. So can you share a little bit more about the data you're capturing? Because it must be super interesting to the real estate companies. And what other data points are you guys seeing that are unique and interesting that we should know about?
Yeah, so we love seeing how much like demand for collaborative work is picking up. And when we started, like kind of during the midst of the pandemics, obviously we've seen a lot of use case for solo work, but we are seeing the trend coming into how people are coming back together, how like collaborative work is important, how teams are leveraging the platform to get together, and this is something that we track and analyze almost like a daily basis to make sure that they get the best service, and that also the operators are well equipped to support them. We're actually working on a blog post that should be released soon with more trends that we're seeing. But I would say like on a high level, so it's all around like the how people the type of work that or the type of tasks that people are looking to fulfill outside of their office or home environment. That's one thing that I think is interesting. When are we actually looking to leverage those third spaces versus staying and working from home or going to the office? So that's one. And two is really around like the how the location of work is changing, right? From like everyone kind of pouring into downtown to workspaces that in locations that are more bespoke and less intuitive, I would say.
Yeah, it's so interesting you hear you say that because a lot of the anecdotal evidence of when people decide to book meetings is really just based on who's booking the meeting and who's probably the leader or CEO of a company works best for them. So I always ask a lot of other GPs and fund managers, like, when do you have your partner meetings? Most people say Mondays, some people say Tuesdays, and then you hear the random ones like Thursday or Fridays. And I always ask why, and they really don't have a good answer for it. It's just that some people say, well, we like to catch up on all the emails coming in on Mondays, so we do it on Tuesdays. Or some people want to, make sure they have a bunch of companies presenting to them during the week, so they save it for Fridays. But you guys are really collecting the real raw data on when people like to work, where they like to work, and what's the most optimal time for getting people together for in-person versus remote or solo work, which is, I think, a better way for people to structure, meeting times and schedulings for companies from day one, rather than just relying on what the CEO wants or what days work best because of, some people's schedules versus others. Wouldn't you say?
That's perfectly right. So and I think policies are important, but also there's like you can do like a top-down policy or kind of try to figure things bottom up, see how your employees what are their needs and how they want to use space, or when they want to meet and collaborate. So I think and the data that we collect really help employers understand that and better support their employees.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that blog post to help guide some of our founders and all of our listeners out there on how they can better structure their meeting times and their in-person versus remote working schedules. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now, you guys recently announced a $6 million seed round led by M13 with participation from R Squared Ventures, who led the pre-seed round, as well as Magenta Venture Partners and a bunch of individual executives from Uber and WeWork. So can you share how the round came together and what your plans are with the new capital and how companies can get in touch with you and your team?
Yeah. So Justin and I, we started the company and really kind of started building and trying to get to the first signals of what's working. At some point, we realized, okay, we have enough proof points to scale this thing, and it's time to raise money. We met with a bunch of VCs, but really with M13, that was an immediate click. We connected to their vision, and they saw the potential in Flexspace, and that from there everything happened very, very quickly with the support of R Squared, Magenta, and as you mentioned, like we have other individual, specifically people that kind of were close and work closely with us from Uber and WeWork from day one. And then in terms of like the plan, so we are hiring, growing the team. That's one, and two, really enhancing the product and expanding geographically in the US.
And are you guys in Canada yet?
Not yet, but we definitely it's definitely on the roadmap, and we are super excited to launch the product in Canada as well.
Well, make sure you reach out to us. We got a lot of Canadian companies here, and obviously we invest in the US as well. So we'll make sure to put you guys in front of all of our founders. Thanks for joining us in the tank today with Eyal Lasker, CEO and co-founder of Flexspace AI.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Tank Talks. To learn more about this episode, be sure to go to Apple Podcast or Spotify to find more detailed notes on this episode or to check out previous episodes. Also, If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and a rating as it helps us out a lot. And hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when new episodes come out. Finally, make sure to give me a follow on Twitter @MattyBCohen or @Tank Talk Podcast to stay up to date on new episodes or to be a guest on our show. Till next time,